Okay. And I want to introduce you to Barbara. Barbara and I worked together a gazillion years ago when we were both working, doing work with the UN, at the UN, on reproductive health and rights, um, women's rights, the Women's Conference, and also the Children's Summit. So we have crossed paths many times over the years. And she has dedicated more than 25 years to partnering with human rights advocates around the world in pursuit of peace and interreligious understanding. She's worked with the UN, as I mentioned, Human Rights First, the Ms. Foundation for Women, and the Grameen Bank of Bangladesh, and has participated in a delegation of Zen peacemakers and Lakota elders in the Black Hills of South Dakota. She is an ordained interfaith minister who bridges the sacred and the secular and has sat with hundreds of people at the end of their lives. Barbara speaks on a wide range of topics, including the deepening our sense of meaning and spirituality and mid-career pivots. She lives in New York City with her interfaith family. Welcome, Barbara.
It is such a pleasure to be with you, all of you. Trish calls herself, I love your hashtag life enthusiast,
Yes.
because that, that's really what you are throughout all of these careers in which I've known you. I'm always amazed by your just willingness to grab life by its collars and live fully. And that
Thank
includes
you.
this new work on death.
Great. Thank you. Um, excuse me. I became, I reconnected, excuse me again, with Barbara when she first wrote and published Heartwood. I was working at the time as a consultant with a local group here, the church up in Derby, and they're still working on opening a hospice house because we don't have a hospice house up here. So there, I was working with them on fundraising for that. Um, Heartwood is, it just really speaks to me. And I'm just so excited that Barbara is here with us so that we can listen to her point of view using her lens, and then also have the great opportunity to ask her questions. So I'm going to ask you to indulge me as I occasionally look down. Many of you who have taken workshops with me know that I do this. I take my notes in my book, writing them. And we're going to start with um, Barbara, if you could tell us what is Heartwood and why is it a fitting title for your book?
Mm. When my parents died, it was 7 years ago now, right
Mm.
around this time during the holiday season. Um, I was bereft. I went into the whole world of hospice looking for a way to eventually think about the loss of them because we were a very tight family. And as I often do, I went out into nature trying to look for solace and answers of any kind. And my husband and I were walking in an old growth forest one day and learned that inside every tree is a pillar, a strong pillar that in many ways is as strong as steel. It's the part most prized by woodworkers for its durability. And that inner core is called the heartwood. And what was so surprising to me is that the heartwood is inert. It's
Mm.
dead. And the growth rings, in order for the tree to grow and thrive, need that solid inner core that has died for its support and stability. The tree just would not continue to go on without that. So it became amazing to me because I saw that we people are so much like the trees. I mean, my parents are in my Heartwood. My dear childhood friend Marissa, who I wrote about, is in my Heartwood. And all of the hospice patients that I've sat with have formed like a very solid inner core that informs the work that I do and want to continue doing throughout all the years that I'm a growth ring until I become Heartwood too.
That is, you know, many of us on the in the room today, live up where I live here in the Northeast Kingdom, and we have easy access to walking in the woods, whether it's where surrounding our house or we have different trails and things that are available to us. But I had never heard that before or learned that before about Heartwood. And I like that what you talk about as what it is, and then the rings around it are growth. And I think that is like a V8 moment, and just so powerful to me as a metaphor.
Well, I think one of the most gratifying things for me is when I hear from people who tell me that they've used the metaphor in talks they've given at memorial services and funerals, because it does
Mm.
make a difference to people. And in a world in which so many people now are deriving their sense of spirituality from nature, it makes sense.
Yeah. And so using that experience, and certainly at the time of, the deaths of, your parents, and I want to offer my condolences because your husband, David, he just lost his father. And it's there's it's a monumental event in our lives when we do lose our parents. And so I just want to offer you and your family my condolences. So how did you come to write about death?
Mm. So, my earliest childhood friend, Marissa, who I just mentioned, was 30 years old when she was diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 4. Her doctors didn't know how much time she would have left to live. And, it struck me that Marissa, because her future story was taken away, all those plans that we have about our future lives was just cut to the core. And she started living life in the most profoundly present of ways. Between her chemo treatments, she was able to go to Italy, which was her family's ancestral homeland. And she spent time with dear friends, with her cats. She was really aware and in the moment, more so than anyone I had ever seen. And when she was given by her doctors a year to live, I had found a book by an author named Stephen Levine called A Year to Live, um, in which he gives some exercises in what would it be like if this were the last year of your life. So I went on this journey, and my journey was symbolic because, as far as I knew, I wasn't dying, although we never know, right? And for Marissa, it was quite real. And I did all kinds of practices, and I tried to mirror how Marissa was living. It was really, in so many ways, a gift from her to the rest of us who would be going on without her. Um, After Marissa died, I wanted to write a little piece and get it up online somewhere, anywhere, so that her family would know that she was remembered and that she was such an important part of our lives. And I published a little piece about her, which is now one of the chapters in the book. And I thought that that was going to be it. It was up on a website, and I sent it to her family. And a publisher called me and said, "Well, have you ever considered writing about death?" And I
Wow.
really thought of all of the stories of people who I had accompanied at the end of their lives. And I thought, well, maybe this could be a small contribution to this field of conscious dying. Because I think the more we can demystify death in this world that is so death shy, the better.
Mm. I appreciate what, calling it death shy. That's definitely, even, myself, even as I'm immersing myself and working in this field, there's, different times, that, I recognize, my back stiffens or I'm like, it, it takes my breath away. And then I have to relax and intentionally like embrace what I'm either reading or listening to. So you worked as a hospice volunteer, which I do as well, and a couple of people that are joining with us have worked in hospice. So how did that inform your feelings about death?
Mm. So I had this opportunity to do my hospice training with two Zen monks. I live in New York City, and I'm very sort of enthralled with Buddhist philosophy, so it seemed like a really good fit for me to find these guys. And I mean, one of the things that they taught me was figuring out how to meet people where they are, and it's a phrase that just gets bantered around quite a bit, meet some people where they are when you're doing this work. But I mean, it really made sense to me in small moments. So one of the Zen monks said to me, Barbara, if you walk into a room and there's a patient in there who's watching Jeopardy on television, your job is not to like try to engage them in all the existential questions of life and death that you want to talk about, but it's really about like pulling up a chair and watching Jeopardy together. And it was such a simple takeaway, but it made so much sense. The agenda that we all carry because we're interested in end of life really should go out the window, and we should really be just wherever the person that we're working with is in that moment.
One of the stories you told about, your experiencing working in hospice really struck me and I think impressed me so much that I attribute, my continuing to, study and become a certified end-of-life doula, companion animal doula, learning more about death literacy, all of it. A lot of it was motivated from your book, but one story in particular was when you were working, you were visiting with a woman, an older woman, and you asked her. if you could hold her hand. And, that was just such a profound for me recognition of the dignity of of the person that you're working with and visiting, and that you cupped her hand. Her hand was on top of yours. All of that just comes back to what you said on the small moments and how significant, those small moments can be. And it just really resonated with me in, my limited experience, being, a companion, and caregiver with people, who have, now left us, and, recognizing that and just really having much more appreciation for it.
Yeah, I mean, Trish, that to me feels like 99% of the work. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that ability to, it like being with the dying almost becomes like a meditation in and of itself. And
Mm-hmm.
I also feel that that pertains to people who are so-called unresponsive. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
my most favorite rooms to go into were when the person was seemingly not aware, because I believe something is happening on some level. And that's where a lot of family members kind of check out and feel like it's the end, but it's really not over until it's over. And if there are ways to soothe people and hold hands and massage their hands and feet, or find out what music they liked and play some of that. I think it really matters.
Yeah, I was just sharing with some folks that are here with us today just last week about when my mother passed, and she passed in COVID. So I couldn't be down there in Alabama with her, but she was, in her last days, and she was kind of agitated. And my siblings and I were on the phone, and they were, sharing that with me. And I said, do you have any music on? Because she loved music and she loved to dance. So they were like, no, we don't. And my brother said, but I have my phone. What do you think, we might play? So I said, big band music. She loved big band music, Glenn Miller, all about it. And so they played it and she relaxed. She just visibly, just, felt it appeared, she felt more comfortable, and she did pass shortly after that. And it's an amazing experience, like you said, to be bedside and to, be able to even talk with people, as, they are, in their, precious time of active dying, um, and, feeling, they're in, their different stages of their graceful transition. And it is like you said, it can be very much so for me, like meditation, and very spiritual and somehow calming and releasing, even though it's not my release, it's theirs. It is an amazing experience.
One of the hospice places that I visited have a whiteboard in every patient's room, and they sort of interview family members, and if the hospice patient is able to respond to questions themselves, they put up like, what is my favorite music, big band, ask me about my kids, like it's just they're
Mm,
prompts for people coming into the room, and it's extremely helpful. Otherwise, you often walk into rooms and there's a television blaring and the news that nobody wants to listen to,
right.
assaulting everybody who's in there.
Mm, good point. So how did you, I know that you had a personal health crisis shortly after the book was published. So, how did you turn to your book and find any guidance, or how did it help you?
So, in one of life's big ironies, on the very day that Heartwood came out into the world, which is supposed to be a big celebration for authors, especially first-time authors like myself, um, I had recently learned that I was diagnosed with breast cancer myself. And I was having surgery on the day that Heartwood came out. And I think this work, um, you know, gave me just a different perspective entirely on my own life as well. So when the doctor told me and she said, now this must come as a surprise. And I thought, no, no, not really. I mean, like at some point, we're all going to hear news that we don't want to hear about ourselves or about others. And it just didn't seem shocking to me. Um, but there are so many things that I learned along the way, which is that, in our world, we tend to push away things that are difficult. We just do. We ignore them or we like consciously, just jettison them away from our day-to-day lives. And there's a Taoist expression that this is a world of 10,000 joys and 10,000 sorrows. And I love that so much
Mhm.
because what it means to me is that we have to dance between the two, surrendering to whichever one is alive in that moment and work with it from there.
Mhm.
I also had a friend during that time who was so helpful to me. And he has advanced MS and he's a great listener. And I was going on and on about, like, will I see my kids graduate from school? Will I ever get to see them married? And just, extrapolating a future that I was really worried about. And he said to me, you know, Barbara, it sure sounds like you're writing chapter 21 of your life when you're only on chapter 4.
Mhm.
And I loved that because I
Mhm.
sure was. I let my head get ahead of my feet, and that's never a great place to be. But having worked with so many patients who I really view as teachers, I really, it made so much sense. And I feel like I began to have a perspective that I'm incredibly grateful for.
Mhm. Um, what would, I don't know if there is like just one question, but could you think of or share with us one question that we should ask ourselves um, in order to live like a more purposeful life?
Hmm. Well, that question of what would I do if I had a year left to live, taken
Mhm.
on as a practice, is pretty extraordinary. And I use it in my life when I come to big decision points.
Mhm.
Um, like I was considering going to seminary to become an interfaith minister after working with all of the hospice patients. I was working on one of the busiest floors at a large public hospital in New York City, which meant that I was exposed to a lot of different religious and spiritual traditions that kind of represented the diversity of this city. And I thought, okay, this is going to take like at least 2 years. Is this really what I want to do? And I said to myself, what if the time were limited? Is this really like
Mhm.
one of the last acts that I would want to do, even if I didn't finish it? And the answer came pretty quickly that it was. So it's a useful tool. Um, there's a public artist named Candy Chang who I admire so much. And when, like, the mother-like person in her life who she was closest to died, Candy was living in New Orleans, and she painted the side of an abandoned building in her neighborhood with chalkboard paint and stenciled across the top, before I die, I want to dot, 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 and then left all of these lines and a big bucket of colored chalk. And she was amazed by how many people came forth and wrote their answers to that. Um, it's sort of like the bucket list, when it's done with intention and with community, and people would really gather together and look at others' answers and wonder about their own answer. And it's almost like a Rorschach test,
Mm,
how people answer it. I mean, some people tell jokes and some people go deep, and it's kind of fun if you have the chance to do that with your community somewhere, in some public
mm,
place. I highly recommend it.
I love that idea. It's funny, we've been watching Leonardo um, on PBS. It was on Monday night and Tuesday night. And Steve and I were talking about his insatiable curiosity and, and how many of his, could be or some are magnificent works he never finished, but he started them. So it goes back to what you were just saying is what would I want to do? And obviously he's the epitome of the Renaissance man. And so he loved, engineering, he loved math, he loved art and doing it. And he obviously was magnificent in doing it, but it wasn't his first passion. So we had a good time enjoying it, and refreshing and going, wow, there's a lot going on there. And, the space and permission it gives to us, just like, you did just now, is, yeah, you know, um, operationalize, if you will, that curiosity.
Yeah, and that really speaks to that proverb I love so much, of something like, blessed is she who plants a seed for a tree under which shade she will never sit. And
Mm,
this idea of looking at 7 generations hence, that is so prevalent in a lot of Native American spirituality, is really great. Like, what if we were able to shift and to think about our lives in that way?
mm. Yeah, and that definitely for me takes intentional practice. I love it. I gravitate towards it. It it helps me, it refreshes me, but it takes practice to, take that mindset and then keep it and, work with it.
Yes. That's the thing about practice. It's practice.
Right.
And one of the things that I've been playing with lately is to take some small ritual, like often self-created, and to bookend the day with it. So my favorite practice at the moment is to take this little cup that a friend who's a ceramicist made for me. And in the morning, I fill it with water. And while I'm doing that, I'm thinking about the things that I'm grateful for. And I let it sit on the windowsill all day. And at the end of the day, I live in New York City, so I pour it into a house plant, and just give thanks for the day that I had. I know if I lived where he lived, I would go outside and put it under a big tree. Um, it's really, it's so small. I mean, the whole thing takes no more than like 2 minutes. But it really reframes my day entirely and hence my life.
Mm. Again, it goes back to the small things that have big impact. And,
True.
sometimes, we're stubborn and we don't allow ourselves to appreciate that, I think. So that's, hmm. So my last question for you before I open it up to everybody else is, how do you think cultivating death awareness helps us? Big question.
Yeah. Um, so again, going back to the smallest of answers, um, I now like relate to the people in my life very differently than I did before. I think I spent some time taking people for granted. And I think reframing death to be the losses of many kinds that we experience in our lives, or just the small closures. For instance, even somebody in your family like going to the grocery store or going to the school for a day, like those goodbyes, I find that we don't even pay attention to anymore. We're on our phones or we're looking at the computer and they walk out the door and it's bye, bye, you know. But now I really stop and, I get up off of my chair and I go and I greet people and I send them off. And things like that are so important. I mean, they really are earth changing in a lot of ways. I mean, I feel like almost on a cellular level that I've changed.
Mm,
Um, but I also feel like this work for everybody who is in this field of death awareness is it's like a radical act. When you start spending time with patients who have the opportunity to have a death doula, that is incredible. And then you kind of can't help but thinking about the people who do not. During COVID, I worked with a fellow minister who worked with an underserved population, and he lost 40 members of his congregation at the very start of the pandemic. So, death is the great equalizer, but we
mm,
don't all die equally. And
mm,
I feel like this work will turn you into an activist of sorts. So kind of figuring out your place in it, and your strengths and what you can offer is, it's a gift to yourself and to everyone.
mm. Yeah, I feel like I've turned into an activist for better or for worse. People that love me.
Yeah,
So
and
I'm
you're
going to,
using your very real skills of like networking to bring together a group of beautiful people who are
mm,
similarly interested. And that's huge. That's not everybody's place. So I really appreciate seeing that.
thank you. So I want to acknowledge that we're already at 4:36, and Barbara needs to go to another meeting shortly. So we've got about 10 minutes, and I want to open it up. And if you want to raise your hand in either fashion so I can recognize you, that would be great. Okay. Nadine, we'll start with you.
I
Yep, you're.
really appreciate you being here, Barbara. And you said sitting with somebody is really all you need to do. Trish and I shared a beautiful woman um, as a hospice volunteers. And often I would go into her room maybe 2 hours before I needed to and just sit there. And she would wake up and say, "Oh, you're here." And that's all she wanted, to know that somebody was there. And she might fall back to sleep, but knew you were there and maybe want to have you hold her hand. But the other thing, and really quickly, I'll say this, the other thing that you said about not knowing um, what's ahead, I tear up every time I think, my son is 43. I don't know. I don't remember the last time I held his hand to cross the street or held him. And, those are moments that, you want to hold on and remember and appreciate with gratitude.
Mm.
That is well said. And I love that we have the holiday of gratitude coming up next week in this country to, if you're with your loved ones, to try practicing that, or,
Yeah.
even when we're not, to just pick up the phone if we can and remind them how much they're
Right.
important to us. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Beth?
Thanks, Barbara, for being here. So much of what you said just really resonated with me. Would you mind saying that quote again? Blessed is she who plants a tree under the
Plants the seed.
Oh, plants the seed.
For the tree under whose shade she will never sit.
Thank you.
Like that. That could be a Barbara-ism, up on an old Chinese proverb, but that's it.
It really,
but
it really struck me. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, Mary.
Barbara, thank you so much for sharing with us. I lost my sister a year and a half ago in New York City, and I wish I had known of you then. She was at Calgary for a short time. What I most love that you said is meeting people where they are. And I recently around here, we've had a couple of deaths. One was a very senior person, and it was expected. Another was a 20-year-old young man in an auto crash. And those moments always, they challenge me because you don't quite know the person that well. At least I didn't in these two instances. And so finding a way to be present isn't really possible, but I've used Facebook for a personal note and giving my phone number in case they'd like to talk. And I wondered, do you think that is a meaningful thing to do? With the 20-year-old, I did mention that we had lost a son several years ago, and he was the same age. And I said, I'm here for the next few days if you'd like to talk. Please call. And his celebration of life is this coming Saturday. And I always wonder, if you don't really know them, you know a little bit with his parents, but you don't really know them, how much does it really mean to go?
Yes.
Wow, Mary, your loss and the wisdom that you've gained over the years since that happened is one of the greatest gifts that you can give this family. and having a way to reach out if you are able to do that and put it in their court so they can call you. How nice to give a personal phone number is so sincere and so beautiful. Um, I now work as a disaster chaplain with the American Red Cross. So I work in a lot of situations where there's a fire, and in New York, that's mostly what these are. Um, and they really tell us, like, only give out a phone number if you really truly can answer it at any hour, because it feels like such a tremendous letdown for them if they finally like buck up the courage to call you and you're not available. So it seems like such a sincere offering on your part to be able to say that. Some hospices have rules against that. I know that Bellevue did. We weren't supposed to share personal information, so that's worth checking. But it sure sounds like, especially given all of the experience that you've had, like what a warm and welcoming thing to do.
Thanks, Barbara.
Anyone else? We have about 2 minutes, and we're going to say goodbye to Barbara, and then we're going to stick around and have some more chatting, and some news and announcements as well.
This was wonderful. Thank you.
Yes.
You're most welcome. Thank you all for being here, for taking the time to visit with us, and to listen to Barbara, and to your patience with me as our first office hours of sending you a lot of reminders. I hope, hopefully, I'll get some feedback on that, whether it was helpful, annoying, or remember you have a delete key, so you can always delete it. But I want to thank you all. And Barbara, thank you. And Barbara has, we have well, I am a fan of Sulika Jawad, who wrote Between Two Kingdoms, another book that really motivated me for many reasons. And she talks about, she's the partner of Jean-Baptiste, who also has a new album out. Beethoven Blues, I believe it is. But anyway, Salika's new book is coming out in April called The Alchemy. And Barbara has contributed a prompt as well as an essay to that book. So looking forward to that, and I'll remind you along the way.
Great.
So thank you.
Great.
Thank you. And as this is one of those goodbyes, I sending you, Mary, Nadine, Margot, Janice, Stephen, Beth, Catherine, Lindsay, and Kathy. I'm just wishing you all the best in this work, and your giving hearts, may they be sustained as you bring care to people who truly need it. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Take care.
You too.
Too.
Well, thank you all. And I did want to open this, time up, for, different questions that you may have for each other, or just, thinking about, what we just listened to and what you heard from, Beth, Nadine, and Mary. So my first question for you is, how are you holding up today?
I'm great. I feel like that this is just wonderful timing, and Thank you for setting this up for us, Trish. It
Oh,
means
yeah.
a lot, and I love hearing from somebody like Barbara with so much expertise, and she's so calm and gentle. It's just beautiful and a privilege to listen to her. Thank
Mhm.
you. Yeah.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate you arranging this, Trish. There was no way I was going to forget it. That's for sure. Appreciate it. But I really liked the format, and I really obviously enjoyed what Barbara had to share with us. And I just think since we're all on this journey together at different levels, I think we all take something different away from it. But whatever it is we take away, it's what we need, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Were there any surprises, as you listened to Barbara as well as each other?
I only wish I could do it all over again. Everything that she has um, pursued in her life just is so interesting.
Yeah. Well, we
I
still
would
got
love
time.
to learn. I would love to learn from monks and
Yeah. If you get a chance to read the book, Heartwood, I think I've told you it's not very long, and it's just so full. And she has done a lot, and that she worked with Anne Dunham for a while. And for those of you who don't know, and Anne Dunham was actually the one who sent her to Bangladesh to do the interviews for Grameen Bank and um, Eunice. But anyway, Anne Dunham was Barack Obama's mother. And, she didn't realize, she knew that she had a son who was, um, a lawyer and that kind of stuff. And she knew her, the daughter, but it wasn't, you know, really until Barack came on the scene that she was like, wow. But Anne, very special person, very special. So this is, as I mentioned, the first of, our monthly office hours. Um, on the on deck, if you will, is a friend of Steve and mine, who actually worked with Steve for quite a number of years in IT. And Ed and I talked today about he will be, one of our guest speakers, and he's going to talk about um, social media legacy, but a lot more than I don't know what I don't know about, passwords, about, different accounts that we have and how to be aware and to be more safe and how to, again, share that information, with those that you know and those that you love. So, and then we hope to also have a fellow who's actually a local fellow who works in insurance to talk to us about long-term, what is it called? Long-term insurance, long-term care insurance. And then we have a friend who is also our lawyer, who is also a practicing probate judge. So she will be joining us.
Oh,
We
good.
will also, yeah. So we
Yeah.
will have, a different, each month, have a different specialist that you all are invited, to join us for this hour. And we'll talk with them. And then, we'll have time, for each other. Um, so the next office hour is December 18th. So they'll be on the third Wednesday at 4 o'clock, and it'll be by Zoom. And Beth, don't worry, I'll send you a reminder.
Oh, send me about 7 of them.
Okay,
Just
sure.
kidding. I'm
Uh,
kidding.
um, we will also, for those of you who are alum of the workshop series, I'm planning an alumni gathering by Zoom in December. I also wanted to let you know that the next workshop that I will be conducting will be through North Country Career Center up here in Newport, and it'll be by Zoom, and that will be January 6th through February 9th. So you'll be, seeing some information about that. If you know anybody or want to suggest it to anybody, feel free to do that. And let's see. Anybody else have any questions or thoughts before we wrap up? We have about 8 minutes. Woohoo.
So Trish, I have a question.
Yeah.
So it would seem to me that no matter where one lives, they could Zoom with you on these meetings. If you're in Arizona or
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, wherever.
Oh, and
So when
Kathy's
we
from Texas.
invite
Yep.
people. Okay,
Yep.
well, where's Kathy? Oh,
Kathy,
yeah.
she's left.
Okay,
And
so that's great.
Margot is here with us, and she's living on Long Island.
Okay, hi Margot.
So
Great.
yeah, that's
Okay.
that's why I have been sticking with doing it by Zoom because of different people that I know and that have requested and are living in different time zones even. So
Yeah,
yep.
that's awesome.
As an alum, Trish,
Mm-hmm.
can I say somebody calls me and would like me to spend time with them? Can I share that I'm a death doula? Or is there more I need to do to get certified or something?
Yep, there is no, you can't say you're a doula. I
Okay.
mean, you can act like a doula,
Uh-huh.
but there is certification, pretty intensive classes, which are amazing. So UVM is our local one and I can send you a link to that. They are in the middle of one class right now, and they'll have another one coming up in spring. Lindsay, did you go? You did UVM as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. So Lindsay is also a certified end of life doula, and she lives in Coventry, and her specialty is music, among other things. So she's been a real find for me as a colleague. But anyway, Nadine, Lindsay, and myself went through the UVM certification.
Great, thank you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
Mary, do you happen to be in Coventry?
No, I'm in Troy.
Troy, okay. Yeah,
Oh.
there's the foundation here, and there may be some other foundations around the state that could help subsidize the tuition cost of the UVM program.
Huh?
And there's other programs around too besides UVM. So I'm sure Trish can send you
Mhm.
a link, but they're really great.
Mm.
Trish,
Thank
is it
you.
okay if I plug Nadine and I hope you'll be there tomorrow. The Northeast Kingdom Death Care Community, which is just sort of a grassroots organization, is hosting a roundtable discussion tomorrow morning at the Albany, Vermont Library at 10 a.m. And any of you that are local, we'd love for you to come down and share your ideas about what types of classes or presentations or anything, things that you're interested in hearing about, learning about, attending, and your ideas about how you would like to see the NEK death care community
support you in this area. So we'd love to hear from everybody tomorrow.
It's great. Unfortunately, go ahead, Nadine. Go ahead.
And there's also a death cafe every month at the Albany Library. Wednesday, the second Wednesday of every month at 6. And it's a lively group.
It is. And, I was thinking about it. I was telling Steve the other day when I came back, I was like, I think this is like the second or third Death Cafe that we started off laughing. It was, it was, just real life. And it's quite fun. And the sharing is really beautiful. I really enjoy it. I'm so happy for it. Happy to be there. Unfortunately, I will not be with you at the roundtable tomorrow because I have hospice training, retraining, or something or other. Yeah. So I will be, it starts at 10:30. So I'll be there from 10:30 to 11:30. But I'll be thinking of you, and I know where to find you if I have any ideas. Anything else? Janice, Mary, Nadine, Margot, Lindsay, Steve, and Beth, I am so honored that you were here today. And I hope, you take away some really good feelings and some good questions. And I look forward to seeing all of you again. And some of you I'll see tomorrow evening at 6.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. That's right. We'll see you tomorrow, Lindsay.
Thanks so much for doing this, Trish.
Thanks.
Yes.
You're welcome,
Bye, Mary.
Bye. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.